What is your impression of Putin? When you think about what he's doing with the war, with the way he's handling it, with the fact that, U.S. put sanctions on him 2 years ago. I think it's been a little bit over 2 years that he's had the sanctions. It's affected the economy, the inflation, what they're going through. But what do you think about what Putin did with the first actions? Your impression of him?
Putin, he single-handedly took several decisions, single-handed decisions that are directed against my country. And not only, the first is that when he took away Crimea in 2014, then the whole activity in Donbass and full-scale war that began in 2022. He is the leader of a country who single-handedly took a decision to go with military aggression against Ukraine, and I qualify him as such, no less, no more. That's officially. Unofficially, I have my particular opinion about him as a person and political leader and how he came to that life, better said, to those decisions. I openly state that, which does not add to my popularity among many Ukrainians, because I have my own view of things, and if you wish, I can share this with you, but it will take 3 to 5 minutes. It's a long text.
I would love to hear it. I want to hear it.
From my point of view, Putin, upon completing the Leningrad University and working in the West, and he comes from political intelligence background, he is the most pro-Western Russian politician until now. His mindset. In his mindset, he is the most pro-Western politician. Let's recall his coming to power. His first proposition to the West was to accept Russia into NATO. Then he offered to make Russian missile defense system as part of the Western American missile defense system. He's the first leader who called George Bush after 9/11 and offered his help. He organized a stopover base for the U.S. and NATO in Volga. It is the same person who today is saying no to NATO bases in Ukraine. And Americans, during their campaign in Afghanistan, were using Russian territory in their stopover bases in Russia. It took a long time before he switched to anti-Western courts. I can even name you the stages of that process. In the beginning, he started fighting with those whom he considered Russia's internal enemies. Those are the oligarchs like Berezovsky, Kosinski, TV channels, etc. So he began taking action as a KGB officer who's used to oppress internal opposition. He got in trouble with the West, particularly with the soft power side, NGO structures that were bringing Western influence, especially the influence that Democrat globalists were introducing through the means like USAID and Soros Fund, etc. He understood that this is the soft power that is directed against him, but he purposefully set up Russia as a non-ideological state. He said economy. From my point of view, Putin is a leader who is a right-wing liberal, conservative type, something like Cecil Rhodes or Stolypin in Russia in the end of the 19th century, a statesman and a right-wing liberal, free economy, and so forth, so forth. But he has a KGB officer inside him, and he has some traumatizing experience back from St. Petersburg times when he was Sobchak's assistant, who was St. Petersburg mayor at that time. And as they say, he was intensely interacting with criminal structures, and it left a definite mark on him. So these are the three sources that formed his personality. He was asking to join the West with all his might, but then the revolution takes place. Let's say in 2002, when Ukraine officially under President Kuchma is taking the decision to join NATO. With the background of Chechenian campaign and Russia blaming the West for meddling and supporting Chechenian Mujaheds, he took it extremely painfully. Then the revolution in Georgia happens, in Caucasus, which is a key area. For him, he takes it as a Western, particularly American expansion right in Russia's underbelly. To put it that way then, the first Maidan in Ukraine, the Orange Maidan, 2004, he takes it as a Western intelligence agencies, in particular American agencies, directed against Russian influence. Then, some time passes, and in 2007, it's his famous München speech, where he declares that he's now enemies with the West. It took him 7 years to get to that point, and they begin planning a definite large-scale special operation against Ukraine. It comprised an entire spectrum of attacks, economic, political, cultural, etc., but they were still not talking about a military decision. Then comes the events in Georgia, 2008. Then, on that background, Ukraine emphatically brings the question before NATO and the collective West about accepting Ukraine into NATO. Bucharest summit in 2010, and the American president at the time says that we accept Ukraine into NATO. But Merkel and Hollande, the leaders of Germany and France, categorically refuse. And Putin understands that this is an issue that he can never be at peace with. that from Ukrainian territory and with Ukraine's help, there would be a systemic threat to Russia's security, at least how he sees it. We can argue how reasonable this is, but I'm just describing the way he sees that. Then the key event was an attempt of Maidan in Russia. It was the Bolotnaya Square, spearheaded by Navalny and other leaders of opposition in 2012, and that scared Putin to death. He understood that this call for revolution as the West's method of action, as they took it, is already inside Russia. Then he turned Russia into an ideological state in order to create an ideology of Russian peace as a software for Russia's expansion. And back then, the decision was taken to take away Crimea, and it went on further. From Putin's point of view, he's carrying out a defense war. I think if we talk psychologically, he holds a deadly grudge against the West because he always wanted them to like him, always wanted to be part of them. He was accepted into G8 and kicked out of G8 from that big 8, and he's still angry, and he's trying to prove it to the West with this whole war that they need to consider him and that Russia has real interest that he's honestly defending. This is his mindset, and this is his logic from what I understand. People blame him for supposedly wanting to rebuild the Soviet Union. I don't think so. Rather, he wants to revenge for the Soviet Union's defeat. It's the motivation. And from his point, the West broke the agreement. They're based on the fact that when Gorbachev brought the troops out from Germany, he was promised that the West will not expand, NATO will not expand eastward. But there were 5 waves of expansion, and he was bearing with that still. But when they touched the former SSR countries, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, he took it as an intrusion into his area of responsibility. It's the logic of a person who's like in St. Petersburg in the 90s, who took over a marketplace, as we say. So we agreed that this is going to be your territory of influence, this is going to be mine. Then you intrude into my territory of influence, and there must be some response. So from his point of view, he's waging a defense warfare. From his point of view, he has the moral superiority in what he's doing, and he sincerely believes in what he's doing. And at the same time, he finds himself in a very difficult position. And it's been 3.5 years that I'm in big politics, and I continue learning every day. I'm trying to understand what's happening, and new things open up to me every day. My experience has convinced me that the average person thinks that politicians lie when they come to the microphone. But all the experience convinces me that politicians tell pure truth 99% of the time. And when he says that we're not fighting with Ukraine, nor with Ukrainian people, but rather with the Nazi government that took over Ukraine, and Ukrainians are brothers and sisters, as he confirmed today at the conference, he's telling the pure truth. He's truly thinking that way. So it's a complex character with regards to Ukraine and the world, with complex motivation, and I try to express it with maximum precision and the way I understand it, laying down his foundational motives and the way he's looking at the world.
Do you think Putin lies 99% of the time?
Нет, я думаю, что
No.
He's telling the truth when
когда он
I
говорит,
think he tells the truth 99% of the time. When he speaks about key issues, what he mentioned today about 80 kilograms of meat per person per year in Russia, there's a big question where he got those numbers from. But as to his positions, for example, in his interview with Tucker, when he does this long historical, he says what he thinks.
Yeah. So, okay. So let me ask you, when you say he wanted to have a good relationship, he makes the phone call, hey, we're willing to entertain being part of NATO. And then, okay, let me go check with the people, Clinton, Bush, whoever it is. Hey, we're going to check on the come. I'm so not right now, maybe later on we do. What do you mean you don't want me to be a part of NATO? And then, hey, 9/11, support. I don't like what has happened here. Whatever you need, I defend it. I'm not for terrorism and all that stuff. He's kind of putting his foot down. But when you say he wanted to be pro-West, and then now it's against West. Well, the West is who? Who let him down? If you were to give names of people that you think independently, because the West can have 9 leaders. 6 of them were good with Putin, but 3 didn't keep a promise to Putin. Who are the specific people that you think that Putin said, yeah, I don't trust this guy, it's out? Is it the entire system of the West he doesn't trust with how we are? Or is it certain individuals that got him to this point?
For him, main point of orientation is the United States of America and any of their leaders. Why? Because he's measuring the real weight, and he sincerely believes that he's stronger than any Western state except the United States. He's stronger than France, Britain, Germany, not to mention Italy and the Baltic countries. And the strategy consists of to create a situation when he can have a two-sided relationship with any Western country, bypassing over national structures like NATO and ES, because together all the countries of the West are stronger than Putin, but he's stronger than any country separate except the United States. So he's orienting only against the U.S. For him, Ukraine is a proxy power of the U.S., and so he's trying to speak over the head and come and negotiate, because, again, he repeated today, he's not going to talk to Oleksii. For him, the U.S. is the focus of his grudge, attraction, and recognition. It's a very Russian way of thinking. I don't know if you can understand it.
But why, though? But why? Is it a person? Because United States can be 5 different things under 5 different presidents, right? So when you say United States, which specific president, which leader, which regime when you say the West?
Putin lived through 4 U.S. presidents, and during this whole time, he has been the president. And today we know that, for example, the administration, I always underscore that you cannot say United States, collectively the West.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes,
right.
Because the administration of Trump's administration and Biden's administration are 2 different types of West and 2 different worldviews and systems of motivation. And he understands this. Moreover, he's trying to play with it, but he's working with the given. He's a professional intelligence officer. He's been taught to work with the given. If it's Biden, he works with Biden. If it's Trump, he works with Trump. But he sincerely believes that a country has objective interest independently from the last name of their leader, the size and the geographical location and real geopolitical interest. And he's always trying to appeal to that. So notice his style is real politics. He's always talking about real politics, real interests, and he's offering to act and within those parameters and framework on the television. What did he achieve in this war? He achieved a great success. You remember the debates of Kamala Harris and Trump?
Mm-hmm.
There was a very curious moment in there. President Trump says that to Kamala that you failed in your negotiations, your talks with Russia. If it had been me, the war would not have started. It's a very free paraphrasing of what took place. So she's losing it for a second, and then she says, in a very free paraphrasing as well, she responds, why do we even have to speak to people like Putin and the rest of them? And that's the thing that Putin always feels, and it touches him very painfully, and he wants for others to speak to him on the same level, like equals. So his interview with Tucker is his attempt to prove why they need to talk to him as an equal. And he's talking about a multipolarized world, not just the United States, who had usurped the power and were telling everybody else how to live. So in this war, he's posing as the representative of the global South. He tried to put China, India, and BRICS and the Arab world on his side. So he's showing them, like, I'm the person who is capable to stand against the West, this neo-colonism that they're promoting. So he's discussing those terms. For you, I'm the defense against that. And the summit in Kazan, when his political isolation was torn apart and tens of world leaders joined him. So that's the culmination of this war of 2022. He is showing that I managed to be this ram from the global South and to force the West to face this new political reality where the world is not single polar anymore, and that it doesn't matter who the president of the U.S. is, even though things changed after Trump.
Yeah, so to me, I just had Rob pull up a report to see when's the last time President Biden spoke to Putin. The fact that President Biden haven't spoken to Putin since February 12th of 2022, that's almost 3 years. That doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't make any sense to me that you don't speak to him.
You're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but the last 13 and a half years, I've been working on my first fiction book to write, ever. Fiction book to write. And while I finished this book, a year ago, I got the strangest phone call about one of the characters in the book where the guy wanted to meet with me, and he read the book. And afterwards, it's like, wait a minute, am I the villain in the book? This is a story about a character named Asher, who is half Armenian, half Assyrian, whose father was involved in the Iranian Revolution, linked to Savak working with the Shah, that they escape and he gets recruited to a secret society. Well, when you go to the secret society, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They've developed some of the craziest leaders of all time. And they test you. There's unique tests that they have at the society where they test to see your emotional mental toughness. One of the tests that they have is very rigorous. It's purely mental. Of course, there's a physical one, but one is mental and emotional. If you're Armenian, if you're Syrian, if you're Persian, this is a book you're going to be reading and saying, holy moly, this is the kind of stuff you talk about in here? Yes. If you're somebody that's fascinated by history, this is a book for you. Characters. There's a technology that this society, secret society, builds where you go into a vault. I won't spoil it for you. When you go down, they have a technology where you get to sit down and watch and have a 3-4 hour conversation with Tupac. You can set up a debate between Karl Marx and Ayn Rand. Karl Marx is in the book, who wrote Communist Manifesto. Ayn Rand, who wrote Atlas Shrugged, is in the book. Marilyn Monroe explains the concept of seduction and sex in the book. When you read the book, it's about development of the next leaders in the world and how they do it and how they've been doing it for many years. And it's also about how to prevent the end of civilization and how this organization goes about doing it. So, I've never written a parenting book before, but if I ever wrote a parenting book, this is the closest thing to it because it's all mindset, a lot of crazy stories. Again, 13 and a half years. Trust me, I told myself I will not publish this book until I sell my insurance company and I'm fully disconnected from it, where it's no longer my responsibility 100%. When you read this, if you're a creative person, if you like fiction books, if you enjoyed Atlas Shrugged, or if you enjoy Divergent, if you like books like that, I think you're gonna enjoy reading this book. It's the creative side. Business books is very easy. Here's how you do it. Here's how this how it works. This is very creative. If you haven't placed the order yet, now you can order it on Simon & Schuster, Amazon. I'm gonna put the link up below somewhere here, maybe even in my profile. Go order the book and read it. I've never written a book where I can't wait to read your reviews to see what you think about this book. So I'm going on this wild journey and we have some plans with this book here. If you support the things that I work on, I would appreciate you going and reading the book, order the book on Amazon, and then post a review. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.